Okay, so I assume everyone has heard by now that Kamala Harris has been chosen as the VP for Joe Biden. All right, so there's just so many things wrong here. You've got Black Lives Matter riots going on, and you've got defund the police going on, and now you've got a prosecutor and a lawmaker who made a whole bunch of laws against the black community and went out of her way to enforce those laws, to lock a whole bunch of the black community up in jail. Not saying that they don't necessarily, I'm sure there's some people that deserved it, but it sounds like she was pretty dirty. Anyway, so you got the two people. Oh, and she's also the daughter of a slaveholder, a slave owner, literally. And then, like Elizabeth Warren, she's not actually black. I mean, she's got a fourth percentage or so. I don't know what her DNA tests show, but you can't be all that black if you've got have that many mixes. She's got East Indian, and I think her dad is Jamaican or something. And he, as far as I understand it, he's half black, half white. So that would have to make her, at the most, 25% black. And then they're literally everything that the Democrats are writing against. They want reparations for slavery, so the slaveholders are going to now lead them to get their reparations? I mean, come on. Defund the police is stupid to begin with, and I seriously doubt any intelligent VP would not, or president would not allow that. So if you think that's going to happen, I doubt it. If anything, it'll probably get more strict. And probably unfair. There's just so many things wrong here. It's so frustrating. The Democrats, I grew up my whole life thinking I was supposed to be a Democrat. I didn't know that they were the slaveholders because nobody really put a lot of emphasis on that in history class. And I don't remember ever being told that. I learned about it as an adult. And I didn't, I always knew the government was corrupt on any side, on some level. I would, I can't imagine it'd be that easy to get through politics without making corrupt choices, depending on whose eyes you're looking through. But, this is really bad. I mean, Biden, he's got the whole Ukraine thing going and the China thing going, both of which have been very deeply involved in trafficking of children and heavily addictive drugs and weapons. And you got China especially as a problem. You got the mob in the Ukraine, and you've got these are his friends. These are the people that he works with, not against. A lot of the mess we're in is because of people like Biden, putting us in a position that they've created such a mess that it's taking years to clean it up a little bit. I mean, we expect our politicians to live up to certain standards, even if they're not perfect. We should be able to count on the professionals to know what they're doing and make the right choices on behalf of the country. These two do not do that. They make choices that meet their own needs or the needs of whoever paid them, lobbyists and stuff. They're not acting on behalf of their voters. They never have, because they were always the slaveholders trying to keep their slaves brainwashed and under their control. And that's what you see happening today. It's just another. I mean, if you listen to the media, it's completely insane. The left has created an imaginary novel that never ends. And no matter how many ways we prove that they're lying, nobody will look and pay attention to the truth, because their owners are always enticing them and tempting them and gossiping about the other side, trying to tell them how, bad the other, anybody who wants to help them must be really bad and racist. I don't know, it's like Stockholm syndrome on a fucking mass scale on the left, and it's just mind-boggling. And I saw it growing up that everyone was extremely hypocritical, and it always drove me crazy, and people would make these choices that just didn't make any sense. And my whole life I always asked why. I want to know why you're telling me to do something, or why you're making the choice you're making. And they never actually know why, because they're just doing what they're told. I don't know. It's very frustrating, but it is shocking that these two are the candidates. They're both racists. They're both major criminals. Well, I don't know about Kamala. We know for sure Biden is. Kamala, she's also known for sleeping with William Brown, who was twice her age when she first got or when she was an intern, which is also not uncommon among these people. People try to intern for them and then find out they're nothing more than a sex object among the politicians. And then they're made to feel like, that's how they got to, do things to get up to the top, and pretty much destroys their reputation, corrupts them, gives them a way to be blackmailed. So anyway, she was sleeping with that guy, William Brown, who was married. So where's her morals? She has no values, obviously, if she thinks it's okay to do that. It wasn't like she was married and was going through some kind of drastic, issues in her life, like having a kid and having her whole life change, and it was some way of coping. She was just an intern and sleeping with somebody in order to get to the top. So, I don't know. And she's a liar. I mean, my God. Her whole campaign, it was just lie after lie after lie. Even her own father called bullshit on her. Even William Brown said that she isn't capable of standing up against Trump. She's going to get destroyed, and it's going to guarantee that they lose. So that's the other part that doesn't make any sense. It's almost as if they're setting it up to lose, because literally everything about these two goes against everything that the Democrats have been fighting for, and rioting against and stuff. So it's just very strange. But okay, whatever. I guess they'll show their true colors, and maybe the voters will get a clue that they're being led. The victims are being led by the victimizers. And it's just as bad on the right if you're not smart enough to see the truth. They just do things a little bit differently. They tell you what they talk about, they'll tell you the truth about, and they'll just conveniently omit or, just not mention the parts you wouldn't be okay with. Whereas on the left, they'll just give you a seed of truth and just cover it in bullshit. And then, on the left, and then, that's their way of telling you the truth without you actually finding out the truth. Kind of like they'd have InfoWars, they'd leak information out of the Pentagon and give it to InfoWars, because they knew that these people were so full of shit and so ridiculous, and they would just cover the truth with satire and just the whole personality around them would be awful, and to the point that nobody would look at the truth. And that's pretty much how they always do that. Or they just outright lie and make something up lately. So Kamala is one of those people. She just loves to lie. There was a woman in Jamaica who did a video telling us who she really was, who her family was, what they were like on the island. And I would encourage people to find videos from Jamaicans who knew the family or knew of the family and hear what they got to say. So anyways, but I'd like to read some of these headlines just to kind of give you a clue, and you can find all of these on Gateway Pundit. So flashback, father of Kamala Harris details on how their ancestors owned slaves. We'll take a quick look at this article. This one is by Cassandra Fairbanks in the Gateway Pundit. It says Joe Biden goes for the Confederate vote, picks Kamala. And that's the other thing I don't understand is the voters are against the Confederacy, but the Confederacy is who is leading them right now. They're literally starting the Confederacy over again. If you look at your history, they've tried this before because they didn't want to lose to the Republicans. They wanted to remain independent and own their slaves. Then the Republicans were against it, and ultimately the Republicans won. Slaves were freed. Our Constitution and stuff was implemented. And then the Confederacy tried to form themselves again, regroup and try it again, and they failed, and they're trying it again now. But then the voters that they represent are not okay with that. I think the only reason Trump was supporting leaving their flag alone and their statues alone is because it's a part of our history, and I think he thinks that our history should be preserved on all sides, no matter what part of the history you were a part of, because despite whether it's good or bad, it is what shaped and molded this country, and it will be what helps us learn from the past what not to do in the future, which is why they're trying to destroy everything. They're trying to wipe out the history so you don't know. While they tempt you with free money and pretty objects and, equality and all this other stuff. That's how throughout history they have been pushing those same narratives. And then it's always been a lie. So watch out, man. Watch your backs. So Joe Biden goes for the Confederate vote, picks Kamala Harris. The father of Kamala Harris detailed how their ancestors owned slaves, an inconvenient part of her history, as she has spent much of her campaign focusing on race politics. The Democrats have been up in arms about an NBC News report that detailed how Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's great-great-grandfathers owned slaves in Alabama in the 1800s. Donald Harris, a Stanford University economics professor and father of 2020 Democrat candidate, wrote about how they are a descendant of an Irishman who owned a slave plantation in Jamaica in a piece titled Reflections of a Jamaican Father. My roots go, so her grandfather would have been an Irishman, I think is what that meant. My roots go back within my lifetime to my paternal grandmother, Miss Crishy, or Nee Christiana Brown, descendant of Hamilton Brown, who is on record as plantation and slave owner and founder of Brownstown. Mr. Harris wrote in his article for Jamaica Global. The Free Beacon reports that a research archive of Jamaican records indicate that at one point in 1817, Hamilton Brown owned scores of slaves. The majority were brought in from Africa, though he also owned many Creole slaves. Harris has been pushing for some form of reparations for black people, saying that we have to be honest that people in this country do not start from the same place or have access to the same opportunities. Apparently, she should be looking into the history of her own family. Hope she's ready to pay up reparations, especially to the people in Jamaica. McConnell has responded to the reports about his ancestors by pointing out that the family of former President Barack Obama also owned slaves. Just gets better and better. You know, I find myself once again in the same position as Obama, McConnell said. We both oppose reparations, and we both are the descendants of slaveholders. Wow. So back, there was a time where I'm pretty sure I read that her dad also owned land, the land out there, the plantations out there. I'll have to look a little closer and find out where I read that. But there was a time where everybody was buying white people and European people and people actually from all different nations, as far as I understand it, according to the girl in Jamaica who told us about it. They were doing a land grab in Jamaica, and they were buying up these plantations, and then the people who lived there, I don't know, I always imagined Jamaica as like a place where the majority was black and they just lived normal lives without all the racism and stuff that they would deal with in a white country. That's just how I thought of Jamaica. And then I watched this video of a Jamaican woman who lives out there, and she said that's, a lot of people think that, but actually it's a large portion of the population is white, Indian, and a variety of things, Asian, whatever. And that their black population isn't actually that high, and those people tend to be more kept in the slums or were slaves at one point, or and a lot of them owned land, plantation land, and were actually slaveholders. Kamala Harris's family was a part of that. So I hope that she's ready to answer to how her family's gonna be paying into the reparations. That'll be an interesting part of the debate. Let's see if they actually bring it up. All right, let's take a quick look at some of these other headlines out of the Gateway Pundit. Like Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris failed her bar exam on the first try, too. Okay, that sounds a little bit funny, but this is one problem I have with the right, is they take perfectly innocent things and try to make it sound really bad. You know, I would bet that probably a larger percentage of the people taking the test fail it the first time than pass it. That's one of the hardest tests you could take. And if she went on to be a successful prosecutor, she must have been doing something right, although sleeping with other people to get ahead doesn't really help her credibility any. But I think that going forward into these elections, it would be nice if everybody would be fair in what they criticize and not be petty and make simple, innocent things that are harmless to smear somebody. I just think that's wrong. But anyways, so they're going to push that issue, and personally, I don't care about that. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, and then we've got this one here. This is Fox News resurrects report on Kamala Harris's ties to the Jussie Smollett attempted modern-day lynching. She helped to coordinate it, but we'll take a quick look here. So in September of 2019, TGP reported on ties between Jussie Smollett and U.S. Senators Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. Last night, Fox News resurrected these connections. Jussie Smollett held a number of conversations with Cory Booker and Kamala Harris about supporting their sponsored Justice for Victims of Lynching Act and providing the needed public momentum for the bill to pass the Senate and House. So the first question is, why would that bill even be necessary? Nobody would do a lynching. It's not realistic. Nobody thinks like that these days. I mean, I'm sure there's some racist people out there, citizens that might be that messed up, but they're not going to care about some bill that the politicians passed. They're just going to be criminals and break the law. But I never heard anybody talk about lynching or going after colored people ever, except on the left. The timeline of these conversations was December 21st through January 18th of 2019. It suggests that the death threat letter he sent himself on January 22nd and 23rd and his staged attack on January 29th were timed to create an opinion groundswell to support the bill and prop the political and professional career of the three masterminds. It is noteworthy that both Harris and Booker released separate statements condemning Smollett's attack using the following identical language: an attempted modern-day lynching. And let's see. Okay, and here's a couple tweets from Cory Booker and Kamala Harris. Cory Booker tweeted, "The vicious attack on actor Jussie Smollett was an attempted modern-day lynching. I'm glad he is safe." And then he released that on January 29th of 2019 at 12:09 p.m. and used the exact language that they were going to put into their bill. But he didn't know what had happened, supposedly, yet he had already attached a label to it. To those in Congress who don't feel the urgency to pass the anti-lynching bill designating lynching as a federal hate crime, I urge you to pay attention. I literally think this is the only reason, is just to make it look like there was some kind of racist attacks going on, and they had to hurry up and protect each other and protect the black community when it literally wasn't actually true. It wasn't actually true. It was set up by other colored people. So anyways, and then this one here from Jussie Smollett was posted right shortly after Cory Booker at 1:32 p.m. on January 29th of 2019, and it says, "Jussie Smollett is one of the kindest, gentle human beings I know. I'm praying for his quick recovery." This was an attempted modern-day lynching. His words again. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or color of their skin. We must confront this hate. Okay, so those are Kamala Harris and Cory Booker, and the point is they're showing the timeline of events and how it's really obvious that, and they were making statements about it before anybody even really knew what happened yet, and nobody had attached any whatever. So they were just pushing their bill, but I'm still confused as to what the point of the bill was, why they felt the need to do that, because nobody's trying to lynch anybody, and nobody talks about ever doing anything like that, so I have no idea where that came from. But there must be some reason, I suppose. At the time, Booker released his statement at 12:09 p.m. and Harris hers at 1:30 p.m. They could not have possibly known what the motive for the attack was because the police were only a few hours into the investigation. We noted last September that all material evidence suggests that parts of the event were influenced by Booker and Harris. Smollett was friends with the Obamas, and then it shows Jussie Smollett and the Obamas all, happy, lovey-dovey with each other. But again, that doesn't mean much because he was the president, and as a president or any famous personality, you're going to get to know other famous personalities and invite them to dinner and things like that. So I don't really think much about that part. I'm not sure why knowing them would be relevant except for the obvious connections to politics. We noted the state's attorney for Cook County, Kim Foxx, is connected to a number of Democrats, including the Clintons, Harris, Booker, and Jesse Jackson. But again, that would be expected. They all kind of work in the same areas, so of course they're going to know each other, and they're going to know other famous people. We also noted that attorney Tina Chen worked with Kim Foxx to drop the charges against Jussie Smollett. And it goes on to show just like a layout of all the different connections that he had with these people and how they were all connected together. It's trying to pull together the fact that they coordinated the event, and they're trying to show you. So this is on Gateway Pundit if you want to get a closer look at it. We asked who beside Tina Chen, Michelle Obama, and Jesse Jackson Sr. and Jr., who was another big-time felon, were in on the decision that Smollett's punishment should be limited to forfeiting his $10,000 bail and volunteering with Jackson's Rainbow Push Coalition for 16 hours, and who worked out, coordinated, and blessed the details of the settlement. I would agree with that punishment, actually. I think that's more than enough. It was totally wrong what he did, and it definitely cost people their reputations and caused a lot of problems among families and stuff that are already divided by politics. But it was kind of petty too, and if anything, the humility and just the way he smeared his own character is going to be punishment enough, as he finds out over the years. But then the problem is that even when they tried to go light on him, he tried to go after the police department and tried to keep the narrative going and started threatening the people who he had to count on to drop the charges, and he didn't let up. He just tried to keep it going, and so probably half the Democrats still think it's true when it was proven not to be true. So that's why I think they're determined to make sure that he faces real consequences, because it's the only way you're going to clear the air and show what really happened. But on top of that, when they were looking through his phone, as I understand it, they found some very damning information in his phone involving trafficking and things like that. And so I suspect that's really what they're concerned about investigating. So we'll see. We're still waiting for that to play out. Overall, the Smollett case is connected to the deepest of the deep state Democrat Party. Last night on Fox News, they resurrected a post. Senator Kamala Harris, who was picked to be presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's running mate, Tuesday once called actor Jussie Smollett's claims of being attacked an attempted modern-day lynching in January of 2019 when reports of it first surfaced. The California senator eventually reversed course weeks later, saying she was sad, frustrated, and disappointed after authorities said Smollett may have faked the attack. I don't blame her for being sad and frustrated. It's the same here. When I saw the thing with George Floyd, I was so enraged. I wrote tweeted the president a bunch of things about what I thought about the subject, and begged for him to do something about it right away, that this was wrong. It really emotionally bothered me. And then as things played out, we found out that there's just another big scam going on. It was from what I can tell, it was pre-planned. I don't know. I hate forming an opinion or a feeling about anything until it all plays out, because the second that you try to stand by what you believe in, you find out you're being played for a fool again. So it's making me definitely hesitate on everything. What a corrupt mess the Democrats in Chicago and around the U.S. have created. This is what they want for the entire United States. We must stop them. Hat tip, Yaakov Applebaum. So there's that. We'll see how that all plays out. It's a shame that people who are supposed to be defending, fighting for justice, are actually creating the injustices, and then they use it as a way to emotionally trigger the population and move the masses wherever they need them. It would be so much easier if people would just quit letting politics and corporations influence their decisions. The more you manipulate things, the worse you make things for yourself. Literally, if you do what's right, even if you don't like it, you cannot go wrong because it's right. If you do something that is wrong, you might get away with it for a minute, but it will always come out that it was wrong or a lie, because it's wrong, and the universe is going to make things right one way or the other. So why do people continue to manipulate and lie and deceive? Tell the truth. If the truth is something that can't be openly told, omission is fine, but don't lie. And when you have to make a decision on behalf of those you represent, not those who put money in your pocket. It might seem like easier to get your pockets filled with, get your bank account topped off by going along with people like that. But in reality, if you were making the right choices, your bank account will fill up either way. You'll either get paid really good for doing what's right and everybody will back you up and support you, or you'll get paid really good for pushing somebody else's political or business agenda, and then you'll get thrown under the bus when people find out that you're a fraud. So why not just do it right? It saves so many problems. We've just spent the last 4 years trying to untangle this web in the political world and the law enforcement, because so many people have become so corrupted. If you don't give people a reason to blackmail you or corrupt you, then you're going to be able to stand up against any kind of attacks. Second, you lie, deceive, mislead people who are trying to do what's good and right, shit's gonna fall apart. Okay, and then this headline here says, never forget, Senate voted unanimously to rebuke anti-Christian remarks by Kamala Harris and support religious freedom in the U.S. So it says it's widely understood that this is also written by Jim Hoft, and it's in the Gateway Pundit. It says it's widely understood that Democrats are no longer afraid to hide their anti-Christian bigotry from the American public. In September of 2017, Senator Dianne Feinstein led the attacks on Catholic Judge Amy Barrett, saying the dogma lives loudly within you. Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois accused Judge Barrett of being an Orthodox Catholic, a term used as a smear against observant Catholics. Then in January of 2018, Democrats continued to show their dark bigotry against American Christians. Far-left Senators Kamala Harris and Mazie Hirono, attacked by Judge Brian Boucher for his membership into the Knights of Columbus. The Knights of Columbus is an esteemed Catholic men's group founded in 1882 and dedicated to charitable work. Okay, I just got to stop right there. The Catholic Church is just as corrupt as the Democrat politicians and the globalists. They're dirty, evil. They're not legit. They're not a legitimate church. They're since Jesus walked the earth, they have been trying to sabotage the Christian teachings from the beginning, from the moment they started hanging them on a cross, or ordered them to be hanged on a cross. They have been sabotaging and misleading the world away from God. And it's worse now than it ever has. So to try to defend them is bull crap. And I don't know much about the Knights of Columbus. I just have a instinctively bad vibe about it. And I know that there's been some history behind it. I just don't remember what it is. But I would suspect that a bunch of men who group together regularly are not going to be very innocent in the things they do when they gather together. Men are nasty and they do weird things when they don't have a woman to keep them in balance. So putting a bunch of men alone in a club like that can't be good over time. But there was a time where things were a little bit different, but this is a different time. I don't know. Anyways, Democrats no longer believe this expression of deep Christian faith is acceptable behavior for Americans in public office. In early January, Senator Ben Sasse passed a Senate resolution saying it would be unconstitutional to consider membership in the Knights of Columbus a disqualifying criteria for public office. I don't know about that. I mean, the Catholic Church is a big part of the problems in this country. We know that the Catholic Church is part of the what did they call it? It's like we've got three different groups of people that create an empire that pretty much decide how this country is going to run, or have been for a long time. And one of those groups would be the Catholics. So, and then, I mean, I know there's a portion of the church the Catholic Church is like the Democrat Party. They've got their deep state, and they've got just an endless amount of lies and manipulation coming out of their leaders. But the people who attend the church are probably of strong faith and really believe in God and doing what's good. So it's the same thing. They're, their children are being victimized by the priests. Then they'll come to the priests to help make their children feel better after being molested, or, I mean, it's the same exact thing that the Democrat Party does. It's just done in a religious way. But there are so many things wrong with the Catholic Church, and this country was founded on Christian values. And actually, if you look at the history, we would have been trying to get away from the Catholics and the Romans and stuff who had been terrorizing the world in the name of Christianity, starting with the Christian Church. So I don't know. I have a problem with them too, but that's a subject for another day. The Senate proceeded to affirm the Religious Freedom Resolution without objection. And yeah, I mean, this country, it's freedom of religion. We can decide for ourselves what we can handle and what we think is okay and acceptable. But I don't think that any religion that is designed to dismantle or override a government should not be allowed to be operating in the government. I don't think that means the individuals shouldn't be allowed to operate in the government, but they should not be allowed to swear in on something other than the Christian Bible. They should not be allowed to be too loyal to their faith when it comes to making political decisions. They have to be loyal to the country. And our Constitution and the way our country is set up to respect the religious values that the country is built on. And that comes with the respect of other religious people as well. But we have to draw a line at protecting our government and our institutions from false religions or antichrist religions or, deceptive religions and things like that. And actually, it's even happened among the Christian church, too. They've inserted themselves and corrupted it and discredited the Christian church in all kinds of ways. And I don't think anybody should put up with that personally. I think we should stand by the faiths that we believe in. And if your faith does not go along with our sort of government, then you should just stay out of the government. Just that simple. Practice your faith somewhere else. Don't bring it into the government. I do believe that spiritual advisors are a good idea in the government to help people make fair and balanced decisions among the religious communities. But that should be about as far as it goes. I don't know. Keep my opinion to myself on that, I guess. Despite our evidence showing the QAnon movement is being used... Or wait. Okay, I guess that was the end of that article. So then it goes on to say, young Democrat voters are disappointed in Harris as a VP pick. That's coming from MSNBC. And that doesn't surprise me too much. What else we got? Well, said all the headlines on Miss Kamala. Oh, there was the WikiLeaks posts 137 documents on Kamala Harris hours after she is named Joe Biden's running mate. I strongly recommend everybody go over to WikiLeaks and look through the website, because they have tons of evidence of all of the things that people keep saying as the lies and conspiracy theories. It really isn't, and the information they've released is credible and can be proven and researched yourself. So 137 documents on Kamala Harris are on WikiLeaks now. I assume they've been vetted, as they've been pretty good about doing things like that before they released it. And in the past, Julian Assange would give people a chance to get the information out there in their own way. So he may have tried to give, or WikiLeaks may have tried to give her a chance and she just decided not to, but who knows? That's what happened last time during the elections. and leading up to the elections. He would kind of tell everybody, I'm going to release this information on you. If you don't find a way to do it yourself, you've got this much time to do it, or I'm going to print this report. And then he would release it. And it didn't come from Russia, and he was doing it over years. It wasn't just leading up to the election. And not once in those WikiLeaks things did I ever see things about Donald Trump. Just saying. So what else? Flashback. Watch Tulsi Gabbard destroy party favorite Kamala Harris and expose her record as a dirty prosecutor. So you got that story as well. Again, by Jim Hoft and the Gateway Pundit still. In August of 2019, anti-war renegade Democrat Representative Tulsi Gabbard blasted Kamala Harris on her controversial record as California Attorney General. It was brutal. It was funny. This is a tweet here from Tulsi. Tulsi takes down Harris over her record on criminal justice reform, the death penalty, and the war on drugs. Let's see what...
Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a, quote, false accusation that Joe Biden is a racist. What's your response?
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be in a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I agree with that part.
Back in your response.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who are on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
Senator Harris.
Ooh, she looks pissed. That was awesome. That's the other thing that makes me think that they're intentionally sabotaging the Democrat Party, because Tulsi Gabbard would have been a very easy candidate for both sides to swallow. She's got a really good personality. She holds her composure really well. She's very easy to look at. She understands what the movement to preserve America is all about and isn't trying to push us into socialism and communism and overthrow our country. Yeah, I've got my suspicions about her based on things I've heard and seen, heard about her history, but out of all the candidates, she was the only one that didn't have a whole lot of dirt or injustices that were exposed on her. So she seemed to be the least corrupt out of anybody else, and the most intelligent, and the most in touch with the people on a personal level. But she is in the military. I'm suspicious about the military-industrial complex being like handlers for her. She almost seems a little bit too groomed, but I don't know. I just don't know with her. I know that she would have been a much better choice than Kamala, Biden, Warren, or anybody else, or the booty gig. And yet they kept her pushed down to the background the whole time. And it's because Tulsi Gabbard is actually trying to stand up for the country and not globalism, as far as she makes it appear anyways. So personally, if you don't know who to vote for and you can't stand your choices, vote for Tulsi. Write in a name that you like, that you can trust, or that is on the right page. Just keep in mind that 99% of these politicians have already been reined in and are walking around with nooses on their necks doing whatever they're told. And there's not too many of them that are just able to think and act freely. So do your research before you make decisions. But as far as I can tell, Tulsi Gabbard is the only one who would have been acting on behalf of this country and not on globalism. Okay, and then here's the next headline out of the Gateway Pundit. Huge MSNBC doctor's image of Biden calling Kamala Harris and doctors out his cheat sheet script. Wait, read that again. MSNBC doctor's image of Biden calling Kamala Harris and doctors out his cheat sheet script. Update: Joe Biden was holding his phone upside down. People are so mean. Okay, well, whatever he's doing, it's a picture of a laptop, and Kamala Harris is on the other end, and then Biden is sitting in front of the laptop, and it says he's holding his phone upside down, but it looks to me like he's pointing the phone at the computer for Kamala Harris to see. It almost looks like he's showing her something. And once again, they'll take the truth and then they'll attach the intentions behind the truth to whatever suits their needs. And that's so irritating, because that's just an innocent, I don't know. It's not like he's reading his phone upside down. Well, first of all, our phones do flip. The image on the screen flips with the phone, except maybe when it's on the menu screen. And it almost looks like it's on the menu screen. And it looks like he's showing something to her on his phone. But whatever's going on, he's not reading his phone upside down. People got to quit taking innocent things and just turning them into something, because that discredits it. But he probably would have been cheating, because he can't think clearly. But on the other hand, is his cheat sheet what most people would call notes about things you would like to discuss? Most people can't remember everything on the spot, and it's smart to take notes and remind yourself what you want to talk about. Whatever. So what else we got here? It looks like that's about it on... Oh, no, here's one more with Kamala. Flashback: Willie Brown throws shade at former lover Kamala Harris. She can't beat Trump, according to William Brown. Jim Hoft, Gateway Pundit. So former San Francisco Mayor William Brown admitted in January of 2019 to an extramarital affair with upstart Kamala Harris. Brown also admitted to giving Harris her first state jobs. Isn't she supposed to be fighting for the Democrats, who are supposed to stand for women's equality and all that. Is that how you get your equality, by sleeping your way up to the top? What kind of influence is that? In a short article in the San Francisco Chronicle, Brown admitted to the extramarital affair and to appointing Harris to 2 state commissions. Harris and Brown met in 1994 when he was Speaker of the California State Assembly. He was 60, she was 29. That's disgusting. William Brown gave his young mistress her first state positions, totaling more than $400,000 in 5 years. William Brown threw shades at his ex-girlfriend, Senator Kamala Harris, and the other contenders for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination in 2020, writing in June of 2019 that none of them could beat President Trump. Okay, so he didn't specifically say, well, maybe. It says in quotes that he said she can't beat President Trump, but then it says at the bottom he said none of them can beat President Trump. Both statements are accurate, but it just seemed a little strange for them to do it that way. So there's that. Mr. William Brown, even though she must not have been a very satisfying mistress for him to speak out against her. He must be kind of whatever. I'm not going to say it, but Kamala Harris said she believes Joe Biden's accusers. So she believes his accusers. Now she's going to go work for the man who is going around sniffing little girls, putting his hands, directing children's hands into inappropriate places on his body. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I know in old age, you start to really appreciate every single life, especially if you've lost loved ones of your own. I just lost my dog for the first time. I've had many dogs, but usually I've ended up having to give them away, or, you know, something or another prevented me from actually ever having to be with my dog till the day it died. And it left me feeling like I needed to be kind and sweet to those I love in every moment, no matter what. If I'm just leaving to go to the store, I'm going to bed, anything that's going to separate me from my loved ones for a minute, it made me feel like I need to express my love to them and make sure that they know they're cared for and all that. Because my dog, I took him for a walk, I brought him in the house, I hugged him up a little bit and told him I loved him, and then I took the next dog out. And then by the time I got home, he was dead. So I didn't have time to say goodbye. When I took him out for a walk, I was getting a little bit frustrated because he didn't want to walk anywhere and kept insisting on going in a direction a different direction than I needed to go. So I was getting kind of irritated with him, but not too bad or anything. He was sick, so I wasn't being cruel to him or anything. I just felt like I wasn't as compassionate as I should have been, and then I didn't have a chance to even make up for it because he was gone by the time I got home. So as an elderly person, I would imagine after losing everyone that you ever knew and loved over time, you would really start to appreciate all of those relationships and people that you get to know. And you tend to really appreciate children a lot more as you get older. You really appreciate their potential and their innocence and their goodness. And he has this tendency to smell their hair, but to be honest, kids walk by me and I instinctively touch their head. I just assume it's kind of a motherly instinct, you kind of touch their head, help guide them or let them know you're standing there, and they're little people. They're down below everybody else. So it's a good way to kind of, it's kind of like if you walked up to the rear end of a horse, you would tap it on its butt and let it know that you're there so that it doesn't kick you. You don't want to scare the kid or, confuse them or anything. So you kind of put your hand on their head and sort of help give them some sense of direction. And sometimes, if a kid is sitting in my lap and snuggling with me or, playing or something like that, you do want to smell their hair, especially if they've just got out of the tub or something, because they smell so good and pure and clean. Whereas people, as they get older, their hair, they got all these hair products in, sweat, things in the environment, and their hair just doesn't smell as good as a child, especially, the younger, the better they smell. The smell of a baby, for example, it just melts you inside. And so I suspect that's probably what Mr. Biden is doing there, is he just appreciates those little qualities in children and then in the elderly too. He's from a different generation, and it was normal for men to be flirty, and the women knew how to handle it, and so they don't take it quite as personal as women would today. But then I saw a video the other day with him holding this little girl's hand and pulling it up pretty close to his crotch. Now, to be fair, she was at his waist level. He was trying to probably pull her into the picture, and maybe he was trying to make her feel more comfortable by holding her hand. And it didn't look like he took her hand and rubbed it around or anything. It just got a little bit too close for comfort, and the little girl yanked her hand away. He may have done it on purpose, or maybe he's just a person who was pulling his hand over and it just happened to be in an area that would be taken offensively or make somebody uncomfortable. He might not have even realized he did it. People bump into each other like that all the time, and it's usually pretty innocent. So, to be fair, I don't know about that. But then there are just so many videos of him doing questionable things, being a little bit too flirty, a little bit too friendly, touchy-feely, and it makes people uncomfortable. I knew an old man who did that. He'd hug me up and try to give me a kiss on the lips, and he'd flirt with me, but he was harmless. He didn't actually do anything. He just made me really uncomfortable, and I gritted my teeth and dealt with it and smiled and played along, but deep down inside, I hated it. And I hated having to see him because it made me so uncomfortable. But it wasn't because I was afraid of him. It was just, he was old. It was gross, But so I think maybe people are twisting Joe's creepiness a little bit too far, but I don't know that because there's so many things on child trafficking and sexually exploiting young girls, and Joe Biden's connections seem to be right in the middle of all of that. So I don't know that I necessarily trust him either. I just wish people would focus on real facts instead of focusing on petty things that are likely to be pretty harmless. Excuse me. Anyway, so Joe Biden on Tuesday announced he chose Kamala Harris as his running mate. Biden picked a cop from California as his party calls for defunding the police. Yeah, I suppose if you work for the mob and you're taking large amounts of money from other countries and illegally influencing elections and politics and things like that in ways that are extremely inappropriate, then the police might be considered a problem. It makes sense. Kamala Harris has some explaining to do because last year she said she believes Biden's accusers, which is, again, quite disturbing. I believe them, and I respect... I believe them, and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it. Kamala Harris said in April of 2019 at a presidential campaign event in Nevada. When a reporter asked her if Biden should run for president, Harris said, "He's going to have to make that decision for himself. I wouldn't tell him what to do. Right. Okay, let's see what she has to say here.
I believe them, and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it.
Do you believe that the vice president should enter this race?
He's going to have to make that decision for himself. I wouldn't tell him what to do.
So in other words, she's too scared of him to tell the truth about anything. So that one was referring to Tara Reid, which I actually don't know much about her. I just heard about all the little kids and then the connections to traffickers in the Ukraine and probably China. In March of this year, a woman named Tara Reid accused her former boss, then Senator Joe Biden, of sexually assaulting her in 1993. Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Reid said in 1993, then Senator Joe Biden pushed her up against the wall and penetrated her with his fingers. That's disturbing. Tara Reid went into graphic detail describing Joe Biden's sexual assault against her in an R-rated interview with Megyn Kelly. Reid described how she caught up with Biden in a corridor in the Russell building to give him his gym bag, and that's when he sexually assaulted her. He greeted me. He remembered my name. I handed him the bag, and it happened very quickly, Reid said. I remember being pushed up against the wall and thinking the first thought I had was, where's the bag? Which is an absurd thought. He had his hands underneath my clothes, and it happened all at once, Reid continued as she became emotional. So he had one hand underneath my shirt, and the other hand I had a skirt on, and he went down my skirt and then went up, and I remember I was up almost on my tippy toes. Reid told Megyn Kelly that Biden whispered something vulgar in her ear as he assaulted her. Why is Kamala Harris choosing to be Biden's running mate if she believes his accusers? Yeah, good question. So yeah, there was that incident too. I guess I did hear about that and I just forgot about it. But so does Tara Reid get to have her day in court and see some justice? I mean, is Kamala gonna do her job and prosecute her running mate for sexually assaulting a girl? Yeah. Or is there something more to this story? You know, I know in the political world and the ritzy elite world, sleeping your way to the top seems to be pretty common practice. And I know men, especially elderly men, tend to think that they tend to misread women a lot and misread what people do. Like, women will innocently flirt with an older man just to make them feel special or good, or, you know, perk him up and cheer him up a little bit, with the expectation that he'll respect his distance from her. But older men tend to take those innocent flirts as something serious and really make a big deal out of it, thinking the girl likes him or, you know, making moves or something. Is it possible he just misread the relationship? Was she kind of overly flirty or something? You know, and he just made a bad judgment call. It does happen, but I would say putting your hands up somebody's private parts is going pretty far, and it's pretty extreme. But like I said, I've never heard both sides of the story. You know, maybe she was having a sexual encounter and somebody walked in on them, and so she protected herself and said he was assaulting her. You know, that happens all the time too. You know, people stage these fake racist attacks and sexual attacks and everything else and try to destroy other people's lives with it. And it's pretty common practice since the Democrats have decided that everyone's telling the truth, whether they are or not. I know that case should be cleared up, though, and made right. Wonder if Kamala's going to do that, or is she just going to try to keep Mr. Biden under control and make sure he stays satisfied so that he doesn't feel the need to sexually assault other people. She's pretty good at that too, from what I've heard. So, anyways, I guess that's about all there is. Sorry, I'm trying to take a quick look here to see if there's anything else. Says breaking, Joe Biden chooses Kamala Harris as VP nominee who accused him of racism. And that's about it on Kamala. Finally, that was a long time. So anyways, this was from the Gateway Pundit, and what they did was they took all the different stories on her and put them, put a list of articles up talking about her dirt, the things that you got to see, and then WikiLeaks put over 100 articles up, or documents up, of things that she's been involved in. So I strongly recommend looking closer into these subjects if you're curious. And at the very least, just don't vote for them because they're dirty. It's just that simple. They do not have good intentions for the country. They want to sell out the independence of this country and turn it into a global communist style country. And they're going to try to sell it to you under socialism. So just do your research, people, because I mean, to me, this is all such an obviously ridiculous thing to do to the Democrat voters, but maybe the voters just don't have a clue. They've been lied to so much that they may not realize it. So, anyways, I guess I don't have much else to say about this subject matter. Aside from all of that, I think Kamala Harris, personally, I think she seems like an intelligent person, and she mostly carries herself, well. But there's just too many dirty connections for her to make the right choices for this country. And if she's working under Joe Biden, she won't have any control over anything. He seems to shut people down effectively right away, even if they're not working for him. So, I don't know. Anyways, this is going to get interesting. It is August 12th, 2020, and I just talked through a thunderstorm, some big thunder booms today, and it feels like fall is kind of creeping in already. I suspect here in Minnesota we're going to be getting fall a couple weeks early. It's probably in the mid-60s, but usually July is like super hot, and we got an extra big heat wave August is usually super hot. We got a lot of heat in July, got up near the hundreds almost, but not, it lasted a couple weeks, but now through August, it's been fairly tame. I mean, it hasn't been cold, but anyways, I suspect the winter's going to be coming in a little bit early this year. Today is a beautiful day, though, and it looks like a great day to just be outside walking around or taking a long hot bath, lighting up some candles, make some soup, one of those kind of days. It's kind of gloomy and, can't do much outside unless you want to play in the rain. But, I don't know, I like rainy days. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of this day. I hope everyone is staying safe and has a great day.